Hi everyone, this is Chance for Chance TV, and unless you're Amish and don't have a TV, you know who this guy is. It's Nigel Barker. And for all you people out there who've ever made it to any bookstore, this is the book to get. I actually read it cover to cover, you'll see.
Thank you.
And it's not just something about modeling and how to look better, it's about really, it's an inspiration on how to change your life.
Thank you.
And I want to get into that right now. But
First of all, I'm huge with the Amish.
okay.
So, even if you're Amish, I'm your man.
And they go to, you churn that butter, build the barn, and then go talk to him. I had no idea. My research.
I'm all about the Amish.
That's where you get most of your inspiration, right?
Exactly.
When you met Chrissy,
Yeah.
now, your approach to her, I think she had an it factor I want to talk to that actually unnerved you because you went over to her and said, I think, quote, I have quite a collection of mosquito bites on my arms. What was her it factor that unnerved someone like you?
Okay, well, let's get a couple of things straight. First of all, she didn't actually unnerve me. She wowed me. I was definitely wowed by her beauty, her sort of straight off physical beauty. I mean, at that point, first impressions are predominantly the way you look. And obviously in the book, it isn't just about ethereal beauty that we discuss. We also talk about the way you present yourself. I needed something to say to her. And yes, of course, look at my collection of mosquito bites is not my finest chat-up line. However, one of the nice things about it, and perhaps one of the reasons why it worked quite well, and I don't recommend you use my pickup line, find your own, but is the reason that it really wasn't a pickup line. It broke the ice in a way that was not threatening to her, and she immediately sort of started talking to me as a person, not as a potential date. And of course, now I'm thinking how genius I was. This is the approach to picking up girls. eHarmony and all you other sites out there. Don't talk about pickup lines and the right way to talk about just being yourself. She was caring, a little freaked out, a little disgusted, a little worried about the mosquito problem in Milan. But nonetheless,
I'm sure it's not Ebola.
broke the ice, exactly. Then I was, afterwards sort of said, well, perhaps, we could grab a drink later on. Unfortunately, my reputation went before me, and back then, this is a very long time ago, I had a bit of a reputation as a Casanova. So, I actually had to deal with that first. And as a photographer, whoever I photograph, I need to have some sort of chemistry. I need to have some sort of relationship in order to capture that special moment, that special glimpse. Otherwise, it's just a beautiful facade. Not just get biblical on it, but there's an element of the parable about a photograph. It's like, look at the picture. Do you like it or do you not? Do you agree with it or do you not? How does it make you feel? Can it move your heart? Does it move your soul? Or do you ignore it? And for me, there's nothing worse than being ignored. I'd rather be loved or hated, but nowhere in between. Perfect is one of those things. It's what is perfect? I shy away from the word perfect because in many respects, it's the imperfections that I look for, which are the scratches, the wrinkles, the scars, the things that we think that we want to remove that in fact make us interesting, that really to me are truly sexy. And just like I love my grandmother, even though she had no teeth, and would run around the house sometimes in her nightie accusing me of stealing them.
Did you take your grandmother's teeth?
I did occasionally, and I would put them in my mouth and go, I don't have your teeth, Granny, I have no idea. And she would say, come here, you wicked child.
No one has 4 sets of teeth. You actually, with models a lot of times, you talk to them and ask their opinions and what do they do each weekend, and you get them so relaxed that, like you said with the beginning of your things, pretend there's no camera. How did you evolve that style?
Certainly when shooting portraits of everyday people, actors included, to be honest, who aren't necessarily comfortable in front of a still camera, I ask questions, I create a narrative between them and me in order to start that chemistry, in order to get that reaction. So sometimes people will say, oh, this is a sexy picture I want, to use something really cheesy. You can't just say, okay, this is a sexy pose. There's no such thing as a sexy pose. There's a cheesy pose, there's a bad pose, there's a provocative pose perhaps. But sexy comes from a state of being. It comes from the way you feel.
You mentioned spontaneity, and spontaneity, I believe you said, is the essence of personal pleasure. Now, given all the responsibilities and how your career's gone, the limitations on your time from work, being an author, family and kids, how do you manage to still be spontaneous?
Spontaneity is really to do with allowing yourself to be free. It's not so much about having the time for spontaneity. It's just an everyday reaction. It's being able to deal with something on face value and reacting just as you would, and not planning it out, not being preconceived, Yeah, there's an element of planning in everything I do. There has to be. I have children. They need to know what they're doing. They like structure. But within structure, there's always room for original thinking. There's always room for thinking outside of the box, being creative. In fact, without it, you simply aren't creative. You're just following the guidelines.
Now, with Warhol, he had the 5-minute interviews or auditions. What did he call it? It was interviews?
Screen test.
Screen tests. And he would have them stand motionless and not say a single word to get them to show their true self.
Right.
Yours is kind of the polar opposite in that
That's one of the challenges in the book, is the screen test.
for people to do it to themselves.
Absolutely. Yes. So I do use Warhol's screen test in the book. So in the book, at the end of every chapter, there are these challenges, as you know, and I challenge the reader to take on board everything that we talk about in the various challenges, whether it be spontaneity, whether it be radiance, whether it be compassion, so on and so forth. And yes, the screen test is one where you do nothing. You stare at the camera, and it seems easy enough for a while. Then you get a bit uncomfortable. Then you get hot, and you get bored, and you might get irritated. And you might wonder what you're having for dinner. You might get hungry. You might think about work. You might get worried because you're late. Now, that point is that you're going through emotions. And Warhol was doing this. And 5 minutes doesn't sound like a long time, but staring at a camera, doing nothing, not being allowed to react, creates reaction. It's genius. And hence, by doing nothing, he got everything.
What is your it factor?
You have to tell me.
That's so good. Well, I think you've got the oral assault down, you've got the charm, the personality. I'm trying to avoid all the looks things because that's really not the it factor at all as I see it. You are well groomed, like you said, to have that appearance. You're not bald, you got a very short hair.
I do have all my hair, you're right. I am not bald, that is absolutely the truth. And that's why I recently grew it out, because my daughter's first sentence was, "Dada, no hair." And she was only 2 years old. So I was like, no, Jasmine, Dada does have hair. Dada shaves it off because he's on TV and he's trying to keep a look and a brand, apparently. I would like to think that my it factor is in my deeds, in the things that I'm doing. And, as much as I try to be, everything to my children, the most important thing is really being a role model for them. I remember initially I started working for charities and said, look, I'm sure I'll go to your events, but for me to really be of use to you, use me as a tool, as something that you can, you need imagery, you need films, you need the story to be told. Whatever your message is, that's a story, that message. I can illustrate it for you. Let me give it life. And
The SEAL campaign taking
the SEAL campaign, with the Adeo Foundation in Haiti, with the Elizabeth Glaser Pediatrics AIDS Foundation in Tanzania, and we just went back to Haiti to tell another story.
You don't just walk the red carpet and get your takeaway bag. You're in the countries and doing your contribution.
Sometimes I take 2 of those takeaway bags and we gift them. It's great.
I want to ask you something from the book. When was the last time you danced in the dark?
I always dance in the dark. Dance in the dark, dance in the park, dance in the bath. Careful, that's slippery.
Everybody at home, this is the man Nigel. I was impressed before I met you with the book, your accomplishments, everything, the way people talked about you. But now after meeting you, I can't thank you enough.
Hi, I'm Nigel Barker from America's Next Top Model, and you're watching Chance TV.
And we are out.